In this video, we're going to be going over how to move, rotate, and scale elements of your mesh. So let's throw a mesh in the scene. Again, we hold Control, left click on the cube, cube comes in. We can have its vertices, edges, or polygons selected, as many or as few as we want at a time, or nothing selected at all. But once we select something, we're going to want to start doing stuff with this model. It's a cube, we want to turn it into something else and start modifying it. So what we're going to do is kind of use these little buttons over here. So we have move, we have rotate, and we have scale. So let's just kind of go through these one at a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the element selected that we want to move. We're going to hit the move tool, so left click, and this is going to activate the move tool. This move widget is going to come up, and kind of how this is going to work is kind of this arrow. The green arrow is going to make things go up and down. The z-axis or the blue arrow is going to move things in and out. And then the red one is going to move things left and right. So if I want to make my box taller, what I can do is just left click and drag, and I can make my box taller. So now if I wanted to make my box a little bit wider, what I need to do is select the sides of the box now. So at this point, my move tool is still active. So I have to kind of turn that move tool off, select something different, and then turn the move tool back on. So what we're going to do to turn the move tool off is just hit the escape key. Now we can reselect the side of the box. We can hit the move button, left click, and make our box wider. Let's kind of zoom out and look at what we have going on. So from here, let's say that I wanted to now make it a little bit more thin. So I'm going to need to grab this face. So again, I need to hit that escape key, select the face that I want, grab the move tool, click and drag, and now I can make this a little bit thinner. So now that we know that we can kind of move things left and right, hit the undo button or Control Z, move up and down, undo, move in and out, and just hit that undo button. I want to go over these little circles right here. So what these little guys are going to be, this is going to let me move on two axes at once. So again, if I needed to move this face diagonally up to the right, I could move it up and to the right, or I could just hit this little blue circle, click and drag, and it's going to lock it to only moving on the y-axis, so up and down, and the x-axis, left and right. So now I'm moving this thing on multiple axes at one time. So I can do this with really any of these axes at once. Just know that you can never move things on all three axes at once, because again, the mouse or the keyboard that you're using only has kind of an up and down and left and right, and that's kind of usually based off of what widget you're grabbing. So if I grab the move left, I guess it would be the z-axis, so this would move in and out. I can only move my mouse left or right, or up or down, which I kind of move it a little bit diagonally whenever I move it, so it'll move in and out a little bit. But just know that I can't really move something in all three axes at once. So usually I need to reorient my camera, move it the direction that I want, reorient, and just make sure that it's going over as far as I really want it to go over. So again, that's another reason why navigation is so important. You're going to be moving and rotating around your screen quite a bit just to get that perfect angle so you can kind of see what you're doing. So the other thing we can do is we still have polygons active. If I double click on this, it's going to select absolutely everything, and then I can go to this move widget and I can move the entire box wherever I want. I can move it 7 miles that way if I want. I can move it up, down, left, right, whatever. And the other thing that you'll probably notice is if I move this over to the right, the whole box, over here in the position, this thing has been actively changing the entire time. We just might have not noticed it. This is for kind of accurate precision movements. So if I needed to move this over 1 meter, I can just go over here, x-axis, hit 1, and then m, so that's the units that I want. It'll move over 1 meter. If I want it to be 1 foot, I can do 1, little hyphen, moves over 1 foot. 1 cm for centimeter, it moves over 1 centimeter. So again, these can let you be a little bit more precise with movements, and they kind of help out. So the next thing I want to go over is the rotate tool. So click an object, hit rotate, and now I'm going to get kind of a similar but different widget. So this has the blue kind of circle, and this is going to kind of let me rotate it back and forth around the z-axis, rotate front and back, and then kind of twist on the y-axis. And the other thing that you'll notice is there's this gray outside circle. And what this is this is a camera spaced rotation. So based on my camera rotation, if I click and drag it, it'll kind of rotate it. So you can think of this as, again, just that camera based rotation of I want to rotate it on 2 axes at once. And again, this little gray circle is going to let you do that. So let's look at this. If we have kind of a side view and I use the gray circle, it's going to be really similar to this red one. But if I go to like a 3/4 angle like this and I rotate it, it's going to rotate it on multiple axes at once. So lastly is this scale. So let's just select one polygon, hit scale. And this tool is pretty versatile. It kind of does a lot of stuff, but we'll just keep it kind of simple at first. So just like the move tool, it has the scale up and down on the y-axis, which this is actually already flat, so I can't make it any thicker or thinner because it's 1 polygon thick. But I can stretch and squish it on the y-axis back and forth, and then on the z-axis back and forth. And again, I can do 2 axes at once by doing this little guy right here. And this one is going to do all 3 at once, but again, we already have a flat up and down object, so it can't really scale on this axis at all. So if we were to just rotate this just a little bit, and now switch back to scale, now if I do all 3, you can kind of see how that just makes this polygon bigger or smaller individually by itself. These 2 would scale it left and right and back and forth. And then again, now if I scale it up and down, this one is going to make it more or less flat. So again, the scale tool can be kind of weird. Other thing, if I double click, switch to the scale tool and grab the center cyan circle, it's going to make my object uniformly larger or uniformly smaller. So again, let's just select this top guy, go to scale. So if I look over here, instead of it being units, it's percentages. So if I scaled it on the x-axis by 200%, it's going to make it larger. So again, this one's a little bit different. And then if we go to the rotate, it's going to be angle based. So if I was to rotate this, say 90 degrees, and it rotates, now it's kind of straight up and down. So again, our rotation transforms are going to be angle based, scale is going to be percent based, and then that transform or move option is going to be unit based. So move an inch, move a mile, etc. So the last one is going to be this guy right here. And this is kind of a catch-all. It doesn't do everything that these do, but it kind of lets you do multiple things at once. So now we can see this is a little confusing, but we have our move arrows, we have our rotate circles, and then we have our scale squares. And then we have this little cyan cube in the middle. This is going to let us kind of move it camera angle based. So if I hover on this, click and drag, now it's moving left, right, up, down according to my camera angle, which is a little bit weird to work with. And same thing, I can grab the arrows, move them one direction at a time. I can rotate things kind of back to where they were. And then I can also scale things multiple angles at a time. So again, this is kind of a catch-all widget. So if you like hotkeys, your move, rotate, and scale is going to correlate to W, E, and R respectively. So again, that's kind of right by 1, 2, and 3 for vertice, edge, and polygon. W, E, and R is move, scale, and rotate, or move, rotate, and scale respectively. So again, you're going to be selecting from edges, rotating those, scaling those, to polygons, to verts. So grab 2 different verts. I can rotate those. I can scale those. If I just have one vertice, I can't really rotate one vertice. It's just a point in space. I can't really scale one vertice either, but I can move one vertice. So again, that's a little bit weird. And then the other thing is just know if I'm selecting one vertice and I move it exactly where I want it, and then I need to select another vertice, if I just go to click on this vertice, what it's going to actually do is my move widget moves to wherever I clicked. And then if I click and drag, it's going to kind of move in a camera-based way. Same thing if I was to grab this little center cyan square and move it around. So that's a little bit weird. Just remember, if I needed to grab this vertice, I'd hit the escape key, or technically you could hit the space bar and then click the vertice that I want, go to that move tool, and then rotate it wherever I want. So again, move, space bar, or escape, click on my new vert, move, rotate that where I want it. We're just trying to kind of rebuild a basic cube, space bar or escape, move that back, space bar or escape. So again, this is something that you can kind of just play around with. And realistically, the more that you mess around at these early stages when we're doing really simple stuff, the easier your life's going to be later on. Because when we start cutting these meshes apart and doing all these advanced things, if you can't really quickly just grab a vertice, move it, grab another vertice, move it, switch to polygon mode, grab that, move it, rotate it, scale it a little bit, and then navigate around and be able to see what you're doing at the same time, you're just going to have a really rough time with this. But again, move, rotate, scale, pretty simple tools, but you're going to be using them quite a bit.